Planet Vero Studios, brought to you by Evergreen Media, creating cohesive marketing campaigns. Evergreen Media in Vero Beach.
She is a beauty influencer from New York City who commands attention.
He is a lawyer born and raised in Florida who lays down the law.
And together they are
The Lady and the Law.
Here are your hosts of The Lady and the Law, Cindy Grossman and Mitchell Goldman.
Hello, Cindy Grossman. Hello, listeners. Hello, Jesse.
Hello, Mitch.
Hello.
How's everybody doing today?
Doing well, doing well.
Excellent. How you doing, Jesse?
Very good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. We can't do it without you, Jesse. But I guess you can't do the show without us.
That's right. Need
So,
you.
of course, you could do the show, but then it wouldn't be
Not
fun.
as well, no.
Not as fun. No, it would still be fun. So today I came up with a topic. Probably you're going to wonder what I mean. I call it real estate divorce. What do I mean by that? Well, we all know what divorce is. Not pretty.
No.
Well, real estate divorce is a situation where people own real estate together and they can't agree on what to do with the property.
At what point?
Well, it can be at any point. So let me back up and explain certain situations and scenarios, and then you'll see what I mean, and you'll see where the situation ends up and how all this can be prevented or minimized with good planning. Because what I like to do on the show is to tell you about problems out there that unfortunately I see people get into, and they come to us. There's a problem already. With good planning, these problems can be avoided or minimized. So let me give you some examples. Two people, could be three, but typically it's two people, buy a house. And maybe in this scenario, they're intending on getting married, and they buy the house in their own names, John Smith and Mary Jones. They move in, they start making repairs. Maybe the wife contributes more toward the repairs than the future wife, than the future husband. They have mortgage payments. Maybe one contributes more of the payments than the other. Then they break up. They want to sell the house. There's equity in the house. What happens?
Mm-hmm.
Who gets credit for what? Does the future wife, she made more of the payments for maintenance and repairs. Should she get more of the sale proceeds from the house? And let's say the future husband says, I don't want to sell the house. I want to keep the house. I want to live here. And I'll make the mortgage payments. Well, what kind of scenario are we in?
Not a good one.
Not a good one. The legal term is, Jesse, it's a four-letter word called a mess. So it's a mess. And who gets credit for what? Again, it wasn't contemplated that this would happen. There's nothing in writing that deals with this kind of situation. So there's a court action called a partition action. Partition, as you know, means to divide.
Mm-hmm.
So what it's left is that it's left to a court to decide, well, the house can't be divided. It can't be split in two like War of the Roses, like that old movie.
Right.
That was a bad outcome. So they have to sell the house and then take the proceeds from the sale of the house after paying off a mortgage and figure out how the proceeds should be split. So what seems like a fair outcome to you in that kind of scenario?
Well, I feel that if she can prove that she paid a certain amount for repairs, she should be given that money back. If she paid a certain amount of mortgage payments, she should get that back.
Well, maybe.
Oh.
But it's not clear. And when you're in a situation where it was contemplated that the party, like this is a scenario, I said the parties were going to be married and that they moved in together contemplating marriage. Well, the courts have created a situation where they say it's a presumption that it was a gift. So if the future wife paid more than the future husband, which now they're going to be neither, then the presumption was that the wife gifted that money to the husband, and the husband gifted whatever money he paid to the future wife. So it's going to be split. Probably not fair to the future wife, but that's the presumption that the court has. So if the parties instead had done some planning where maybe the future husband signed a note or just some sort of an acknowledgement that the wife was, or the future wife was contributing more, then that would have preserved her right to get the extra amount of money that probably she should get.
Wow.
So, so that's one scenario. Another scenario is where two people buy a house and it's an investment property. One moves in and is supposed to make payment. It is supposed to do the improvements, and the other, let's say, pays the mortgage payment. Well, if the person doesn't make the improvements that they're supposed to make and they're living in the house, the other person's making the mortgage payment, they're kind of contemplating, okay, once the improvements are done, we're going to sell the house and, split the difference. What if that doesn't happen? Now, again, a very bad situation, and a partition action would have to be filed to divide the house. So what should have been done in that case is the person that's making the mortgage payments, maybe they should just get the title in their name and do a mortgage to kind of compensate the other party for the improvements that the other party is going to make, and they owe them that money. And if the work isn't done, then they don't owe them that money. So that's another way to do it. It gets very complicated.
I know in a lot of cases you do see sometimes a parent will buy a house, for a child, an adult child and their family. Now, that sometimes can be a problem as well, especially if the parent does become older and possibly has to live with the family, and then, the other spouse doesn't want that situation. But here, they were nice enough to go on to the title, so to say, possibly to help with the mortgage payment. So, I mean, what happens in situations like that?
That's an excellent question. Thank you for asking. So there are a couple ways that I see typically that something like that happens. The first way is you have a parents that own a house. Mom and dad own a house, and they want to put the child on the title. And the reason they want to put the child on the title is because they want to avoid probate. Sometimes, though, not typically, they want to put the child on because maybe the child is contributing payments to the mortgage. But usually it's they want to avoid probate. Well, as you can imagine, there can be problems with that. The problems are typically something happens and the child, their behavior changes. Drugs, attitude, just something happens. Changes in attitude, changes in latitude. That's one way, and they don't get along with the parents anymore. Well, guess what? Too bad. They own an interest in the property now. So the parents, let's say the parents want to sell the house. Well, you have to get Junior to join in, and he or she may say, "Yeah, I'll sign, but I need X amount of dollars for doing so."
Exactly.
Or let's say the parents decide they want to mortgage the house. guess what? Junior has to sign the mortgage. That's one scenario. Another scenario is Junior gets a judgment against him. Could be a lien on the house. And then a creditor comes along and says, hey, I have an interest in this house now.
Right.
Not good.
No. And then Junior could also get married, and that could be a mess.
Exactly. That was the third scenario, where now you're dealing with a spouse of your child that you don't get along with, that wants an interest in the house or wants you to do something. So let's talk about some ways to avoid that problem when we come back.
Okay.
The law offices of Goldman, Monahan, Tucker, and Bettine is here to help you with your personal legal challenges, business needs, and real estate matters. Since 1984, we have assisted countless numbers of Florida individuals and businesses with their legal issues, from trusts and estates, wills, real estate, and civil or criminal litigation. We pride ourselves on maintaining lifelong client relationships and would appreciate the opportunity to assist you and your family as well. Please call 321-639-1320 for further information on the law offices of Goldman, Monahan, Tucker, and Bettine. I'm a non-attorney spokesman.
Waves Auto Spa, known as Vero's fastest and finest. A car wash known for their quality equipment and attention to detail by a friendly and courteous staff. Waves offers soft cloth technology, and a top-notch detail center will help preserve the value of your car. Waves now offers windshield chip repair, and in most cases, it doesn't cost you a dime. Spend less time and get a better quality experience for you and your car at Waves Auto Spa, US 1 Vero Beach, across from Kmart Plaza. Open 7 days a week.
Revive Vero Beach, located next to Anytime Fitness on Oslo Road and 27th Avenue, has everything you need to look and feel your best, including hormone replacement therapy, stem cell therapy, sexual wellness, weight loss, laser aesthetics, hair, tattoo, and skin spot removal, Botox and fillers, cryotherapy, comprehensive blood work, and everybody's favorite ozone and IV therapy. Refresh, renew, and revitalize yourself at Revive today. Call 772-492-6607. A member of the iTex trading community. Your iTex dollars are welcome.
Blue Dolphin Pools strives to provide quality service with a well-trained staff in the field and in the office. They want you to know that your pool or spa investment means much more to them than just another account. They believe you have entrusted them with your investment, and they'll do their best to see that it stays in top condition. Blue Dolphin Pool has been in business over 35 years, setting them apart from the competition. Residential or commercial, Blue Dolphin will keep you in the swim. 567-5853.
Don't miss the boat. The Vero Beach Boat Show, April 1st and 2nd at Riverside Park. See the latest boats from local dealers with staff ready to answer your questions. See everything from cruisers to kayaks, flats boats to deck boats, offshore fishing machines, and more. Enjoy food and refreshments, free admission, and free parking. It's everything a boater or boater-to-be could dream of. The Vero Beach Boat Show, April 1st and 2nd at Riverside Park in Vero Beach. Details at VeroBeachBoatShow.com.
Need an enlightening pick-me-up? Visit Kristen and Cindy at Skinergy to energize your skin and keep it looking fabulous forever. Kristen can help with hair removal, sugaring to keep your whole body smooth and conditioned. Kristen will help you refresh and defend your skin while giving you a customized facial. Cindy helps skinergize and get you camera ready for your everyday look or special occasion. Visit Kristen and Cindy at Skinergy. Find them on Facebook under the Skinergy Squad.
So when we were last talking, we were speaking about what happens when a parent wants to put a child on title, usually for purposes of avoiding probate. And the problems with that, if you don't plan, always have to plan. And what you do in a situation like that to avoid the problems that we talked about before we took a break, they have what's called a ladybird deed, or it's also known as, the technical term, an enhanced life estate deed. So the parents deed the property to the child with a special deed. And what it enables the parents to do is to keep control of the house as long as they're living. Upon their death, the house goes to the child or children. You avoid probate. But during the life of the parents reserve the power to mortgage the property. They can do it without the joinder of the children. They can sell the property without the children joining in. And if Johnny really upsets them and there's a falling out, they can change the deed, and Johnny no longer has any remainder interest in the property at all.
Oh.
So there goes that problem. But it requires planning.
Right.
And if you don't plan for these kind of things and you don't talk it out, then that's where the problem comes up. So
Okay. Now, what happens, Johnny's on the deed and there's a discrepancy in the will? Did you ever see something like that? Like the will says one thing, but yet he's on the deed, so if parents pass away, he should automatically be entitled to the house. But what if the will says something different?
So let's say the will leaves the house to someone else.
Yes.
And he's on the title.
Yes.
In all likelihood, the deed is going to control because the deed is apart from the will. It's separate from the will.
Oh, okay.
So if they really wanted to change that, then they would have had to change the deed. But because he's on the title at the time of the parent's death, that will control.
Wow.
So, but you can see the problems that arise can be very messy.
Yeah.
So there are some other things that you can do to avoid these problems. If you're going to be partners with someone, and someone's going to contribute labor and materials, and someone else is going to be making the mortgage payments, and let's say there's rent to a third party, you need to document how these expenses are going to be memorialized and reflected when on the balance sheet.
Right.
Because if you don't, and it's a mess, then what's a court going to do?
Right.
They're not going to know. It's anybody's guess.
Right, because I guess the flippers, they tend to do that, right? Somebody has some finances, they partner up with a contractor, and then of course they sell the property, but then that I'm sure gets to be a bit sticky if everything is not documented and the contract is made, because the contractor can say, well, I put this much into it. Well, I initially, bought the property, so I would think.
Exactly. And usually in a case like that, what we'll see is that the person that loans the money, hopefully they put a mortgage on the property, because then okay, we've contributed this amount of money and it's documented. Why? Because there's a note and a mortgage. So the note and the mortgage are going to state how much that the person loaned the money is due. Then there can be an agreement on the side with the contractor or the person doing the labor about how much they get. And do they get paid for their time? Do they get paid an hourly rate plus their costs? Do they just get their costs and a percentage of profit, however you define it?
Right.
It's
complicated.
It can get very complicated. And as I've said many times, put it in writing.
Right.
Because if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. Yeah. There's no proof.
Right.
Have to get it in writing.
That's important.
And, these are the kind of issues that we see. And it's unfortunate because one case that we have, the fees can be quite expensive. They're very tedious cases. Very much, what do the documents show? What are your financial records? You have to keep really good records. A tenant pays in cash. Is that documented? How is it documented? Not only for income tax purposes, but when these issues unfortunately come to the surface, you have to be able to prove it if necessary. And it's documentation that's going to prove it, or you're going to lose because you didn't have it.
Right.
So it's always something.
Yeah.
But The more you document.
But that's why even in a divorce case with two married people who are on a title, the first thing you usually hear is, well, they have to sell the house because they have to divide everything 50-50. I know you always hear that. I mean, unless what are the technicalities that one can buy
sure.
the other one out?
If one spouse contributed the deposit and it didn't come from joint assets, maybe they just got married as opposed to buying a house during the marriage, then the one spouse may have a claim to more of that deposit because really it came from assets that weren't marital assets at the time.
Oh, okay.
So whereas if you're married for a time and you have a joint account and the deposit comes from that joint account, then the other may have more of a claim or less of a claim. Then it's 50-50.
Right.
So, but it's complicated.
Yeah.
So paperwork is tedious.
And then you always feel like, well, we're married and we're in this loving relationship. How would that ever happen? But then you wake up, 5-10 years later, and the happiness is not there anymore, and you're in the middle of a divorce, and all of a sudden he or she comes up with the paper that proves that she made the deposit out of her personal account, and then I feel like it becomes a whole war.
It does. So try to avoid the war.
Right.
And if you're in it, then make sure you have good documents.
Right. But of course, at the time, do you think about having good documents? That's what I'm saying.
Probably not, but that's the purpose of our radio show, to inform our listeners that these are issues out there. And, not only with partition actions or real estate disputes, it's with any business or any transaction. You have to be aware and know what the worst is that can happen. And if you can document things and keep track of records, it will help you.
Right.
So that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good topic.
Thank you for your questions. Thank you, Jesse.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Good question.